we received comments from the United Nations Habitat telling us what they liked and where they thought we could improve on things. And they asked us to look at enhancing data collection and reporting, to deepen analysis of the key drivers, the challenges and the policy impacts, and to improve on the documentation of stakeholder engagement. And so you'll see these aspects come through in the report once it's published. And what I'm going to share with you today is essentially on the data part, but how it then links to providing an analysis and how it linked to the stakeholder engagement as well. So they asked us if we could please use more indicators, and especially those provided by the New Urban Agenda reporting guidelines, which is totally aligned with the SDGs. They asked us to provide a time series data that is, what happens over the years in terms of progress, and to also try and disaggregate stats by gender, income level, urbanization degree, etc., etc. So I'll try and demonstrate these to you. They also asked us to have a deeper trend analysis by linking observed progress to key drivers, to interventions and challenges. They asked us to conduct impact assessments if we could, and to identify the barriers to progress. So you can see the requirements are quite high, but we chose to do an update report rather than a comprehensive report. If we chose to do a comprehensive report, we'd had to meet all of these requirements. So we looked at providing realistic and evidence-based data. We provided analysis where we could. We connected with practice, and we tried to be as inclusive and transparent as possible. So I'm going to use one example. So amongst all the indicators, whether you look at it from an SDG perspective or you look at it from a New Urban Agenda perspective, I chose to give you an example on water. So there's a bigger section about access to basic services, and then we hone in on an indicator that says, what's the proportion of population using safely managed drinking water services? And what I'm able to show you is on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a snippet from what is going to be in the country report. And you can see that we've been able to provide disaggregated data by metro. And in the middle of it, the red bar is actually the average of all the metros. If you look at the SDG country report for 2023, and that's on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that the way in which they are required to provide the information. So anyone doing an SDG report also has guidelines on how to present the information. And this is what was presented in the 2023 report. It gives you progress over the years. So you see the slight change and the disaggregation part that comes in with the New Urban Agenda report. But to get to this kind of level is fairly challenging. And then it's even more challenging when you have to start providing the analysis, the trends, and when you've got to link it then to what's happening on the ground. So I picked up something else from our report that's about to be published and looked at just the informal settlements. And you can see the stats that's been provided in there. And we even give the data source, which is Department of Water and Sanitation. It's an internal data tool. We communicated very effectively with them to get some of the information, as we did with the National Strategic Hub, as well as others. And then what I've added to that is to show you what we did. We ran a social media campaign that asked for any kind of project that was working really well on the ground, whether it's from an NGO background, a community-based organization. So we went quite wide with who could forward a project. We got a project on water that came in from Asivikelani, and this was a project in Knysna. And so what we've done in the report is we provide the data, and we can provide, which is the evidence. We then actually say what's happening on the ground, and we include that information as well. And then you can actually do a correlation. Is what's coming through from the projects the same as the evidence that we get from government reports or any other reports? And you can see that it gets a bit more and more complex to be able to then provide the analysis and to say what's really happening on the ground. But you get a full picture in this way. We also ran a series of stakeholder engagements, which was very interesting. We went to 5 provinces in person, where the province took the lead from Human Settlements and Kokta, as well as Salga, and they invited people from municipalities, but also other sectors in society. And one part of the workshop, we actually asked people to rate what their lived experience was. And obviously, it was their own lived experience, whether they came from a rural area, urban area, but somewhere in that province. And what came out is to say the scores across the provinces were weak to moderate. So they more or less scored 3 out of 5. So you can see that people in the country are not that happy with any of the services they receive in terms of where they come from in their areas. And if you link it back to the results that we put into the report about water or anything else, it seems to correlate. So we can talk about access. We can talk about how many people have water, but do they have water every day? Do they have many interruptions? Those kinds of nuances need to come through the report in a way. And in us doing the report this year, which will be published by the United Nations next year, we try to give all these different perspectives to correlate with the evidence that comes from the hardcore data. So as mentioned, this was a partnership project, and you got the names and the email addresses of the team. Everyone put their effort into this and worked very hard. And what we've come up with is about a 125-page report. It may change a little. We're going through the second edit, and then it will be published. In this meeting today, we have Nobukosi Ngwenya. She was the lead researcher. And given that I haven't used all 20 minutes of my time, if Nobukosi would like to add anything, or if there's anyone here from Human Settlements, you can please check with the organizers and see if they will allow you to speak at this stage. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks very much, Yasmin, for that very concise overview of the New Urban Agenda and the process. That's much appreciated. I'm just looking down the list of attendees, and if Nobukosi or any other of the partners in the New Urban Agenda country report would like to add anything from their experience, please just raise your hand and we'll have to unmute you. In the meantime, I'm going to ask our next speaker, Puseletso, to just get ready. I will be introducing Puseletso in a second. Okay, I don't see anyone's hand. So let me take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker. So Puseletso Maile is a development practitioner with over 10 years of experience in citizen-led research and advocacy on sustainable development goals across Africa. And she's going to be giving us a civil society perspective on citizen-generated data. As a program coordinator for research and advocacy at African Monitor, she leads work on the Voluntary National Review and citizen-generated data. Puseletso is consulted in market and social research and is pursuing a master's degree in data science at the University of Witwatersrand. And today she is joined as well by her colleague Sikolile Ngobo as well. So Puseletso, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good afternoon, everyone. As Nick indicated, I'll be presenting on citizen-generated data in the Voluntary National Review, mainly looking at the civil society participation in the 2024 Voluntary National processes for South Africa. I'll start by defining what is citizen-generated data or citizen data. So according to Civica, citizen-generated data is data produced by non-state actors, data produced to monitor issues that affect the people, data produced by citizens under consent. This definition has been adopted by under the Copenhagen framework and is now being called the citizen data as of March 2025. And citizen data refers to data originating from initiatives in which citizens are engaged at various stages of the value data chain. It's guided by principles that um, promote inclusive, responsible, professional, and ethical production and use, regardless of whether or not these data are integrated into official statistics. Key aspects of the new definition is that is sufficient and meaningful participation of citizens and stages of the data value chain that citizens are engaged in. It encourages engagement throughout the entire data value chain. Let's see if my thing is working. So the work around citizen data is currently being guided by the Copenhagen framework for citizen data. It helps conceptualize and agree on the different ways that citizens can play a role in data and support formulating actions points for community to move forward. As indicated, it was endorsed in March at the 56th Annual Statistical Commission, and the framework provides a definition of citizen data. It provides principles of citizen data, the role of national statistic offices in citizen data, an enabling environment, as well as a roadmap to implement the conceptual framework. Um, the Agenda 2030 indicates that the SDG follow-up and review processes at all levels should be open, should be inclusive, participatory, and transparent for all people, and support the reporting by all relevant stakeholders. It also indicates that the national review processes should draw on contributions from indigenous people, civil society, the private sector, and other stakeholders. So for the 2024 voluntary national review processes, we had a civil society report, we had the national report, we also had a private sector report, which was compiled by the UN Global Compact. It also states that there should be nothing about us without us. So citizen data makes sure that voices are heard and counted, ensures that there is representation and accessibility for the most marginalized groups. Citizen data can empower citizens and turn them into agents of change. It can enhance data availability, timelines, quality, openness, and disaggregation, as well as provide valuable insights, especially for marginalized communities. So the CDG methodology, as previously indicated, it provides a structured framework for collecting, validating, and integrating data from community level into the VNRs and the VLRs, ensuring that there is meaningful participation and representation. So under citizen-generated data, different participatory methods can be used, including surveys, including focus group discussions, as well as digital platforms. It also assists with the validation and analysis um, of data. It ensures that there is triangulation, there is quality assurance, there is collaborative analysis, as well as contextual interpretation. In regards to the VNRs, citizen-generated data can be formally incorporated into the review processes. Lesotho has done that. South Africa did that with the 2024 processes. It complements official data sources by, let us say, the the report that the previous speaker had referred to. So civil society participated, provided inputs into 10 goals during the 2024 voluntary national review. These are the goals that civil society saw as priority goals for them. As you can see, most of them are social goals, and it's goal 1 on no poverty, goal 2 on zero hunger, goal 3 on good health and well-being, goal 4 on quality education, goal 5 gender equality, 7 affordable and clean energy, 8 decent work, 13 climate action, 16 peace, justice, and strong institutions, as well as goal 17, which is on partnership for the goals. So here, civil society was submitting written inputs. Um, they were part of the writing group that was coordinated by the DPME, the National Planning Commission. They disseminated the survey that was developed by the National Planning Commission. They also assisted with the consultations that the National Planning Commission held during the voluntary national review process. One of the mechanisms that civil society advocated for during that process was mechanism 1 on prioritizing human well-being and enhanced capabilities through sustainable development goals. Some of the mechanisms include the second mechanism on investing in young people for participation in the fields with a high job growth potential, as well as the mechanism on funding South Africa's SDG implementation. These acceleration mechanisms are in the National Voluntary National Report. Civil society also compiled their own report. It's called the People's Report. It used citizen-generated data for this. So the People's Report is an independent civil society assessment of the national delivery of the Agenda 2030. It is compiled using a civil society toolkit developed by Action for Sustainable Development, which is a global civil society coordinating body under Civicus. During the processes, we had consultations for each of the goals, and we chose 3 targets to report on under each goal. We also identified sources of information from your national statistics, information produced by your national by StatSave to information produced by civil society and other actors. And also, we also ensured that the sources of information that we use are credible. So in terms of the report structure that civil society produced, some of the things that were included was the context, looking at the social, the political and economic context of the goal, as well as they also did an assessment of progress achieved so far towards meeting the targets in the selected goals. Then they made sure that also looked at whether there are policies and an enabling environment to achieve the targets by 2030, identified whether there are coherent frameworks that can deliver on specific goals as well as other goals, looked at the mandates, legislatives and provisions and resources to deliver on the agenda, as well as identified the gaps and accelerators for achieving the goals and provided recommendations and case studies. So all of this is in the People's Report, and all this is on. This was done in 2 parts. Civil society did a scorecard which is based on perception, where they rated where the country is in terms of policy, in terms of achieving the goals by 2030. Then they also did an analysis based on the data they have previously produced for the chapters under the report. Some of the so the different goals were led by different civil society organizations. We reported on 8 goals, with goal 1 on no poverty being led by African Monitor. Some of the challenges that were identified under this goal include income inequality, unemployment, limited access to livelihood capital, education, social exclusion, and vulnerability contributing to poverty in South Africa. Some of the successes that were identified in the People's Report based on the consultations and based on the inputs made by different civil society organizations include growing social grant coverage and improved youth employment rates supported by government programs. In terms of the proposed interventions, we have formalizing informal work, beneficiation of minerals, efficient public transportation, so sustainable human settlement, permanent social grant, and investment in skills development. The second goal in the People's Report was led by the Frederick Ebert Stiftung first, and under the challenges, they identified increasing food insecurity, malnutrition, especially among children, low levels of support for small-scale farmers, and access to land as the challenges. successes include a well-developed commercial agricultural sector and social safety nets. In terms of proposed interventions, we have fast-track land restitution, tackle price fixing in the food industry, increase financial and technical support for Black farmers, and implement the Food Security Act and sovereignty hubs. Goal 4, which was led by Gaso Trust, the challenges that were identified include low reading proficiency, skills mismatch, and teenage pregnancy. Some of the successes under Goal 4 on quality education include increased school enrollment, higher, higher matriculation rates, and growing financial aid for students. Proposed intervention by the civil society organizations that collaborated with Gaso Trust include governance and accountability, promoting equitable learning, free technological skills and resources in disadvantaged communities, and scaling up successful pilot programs such as the Bayers Nodia District Whole School Development Program. Goal 5 was led by Sonke Gender Justice. In terms of the challenges, they identified implementation of gender policies and framework, localization and lack of coordination at different government levels. In terms of successes, we have comprehensive policies, laws, programs, frameworks, and strategies to address gender inequalities and empower women. Proposed interventions include increased collection of gender disaggregated data, strengthening the monitoring and reporting framework, and increased collaboration and partnership between the private sector and the public sector. Goal 8 was led by COSATU. Some of the challenges that they identified include slow economic growth, rising costs, and skills mismatch. Some of the successes include a comprehensive set of labor legislations that promote workers' rights. Some of the interventions include addressing the crises in electricity, rail, ports, roads, and water and sanitation, reviewing and consolidating existing employment programs, promote and decriminalize Black women-led businesses, retool the private sector, nurture collaboration, and leverage incentives for job growth. Consultation with the South African retail industry is crucial for manufacturing localization within the Presidential Job Summit, fair remuneration, and working conditions, amongst other. Then in Goal 13 on climate action, we had natural justice leading on this. They identified the challenges they identified included the fact that South Africa is both a greenhouse gas emitter and is also vulnerable to climate crisis. The successes that they identified included that South Africa is currently taking steps to establish a policy framework aimed at addressing climate change. Proposed interventions include accelerating the renewable energy transition, incentivizing sustainable business practices, expediting the decommissioning of coal plants, and improving transparency and community engagement in energy. Goal 16 was led by CSVF, the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation. Some of the challenges that they then identified include higher homicide rates, bribery, and human trafficking and lack of legal consequences, and the shrinking civic space. Some of the successes include the establishment of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Proposed interventions include improve interagency coordination, enforce child trafficking legislature, increase justice sector budget allocations, and implement socio-economic interventions. Goal 17 was led by African Monitor again, and some of the challenges that were um, identified under Goal 17 on partnerships for the goals include rising debt, state-owned enterprises that are under pressure, mismanagement of public spending, illicit financial flows, and political, economic, and regulatory factors. Successes include financial resource mobilization through remittances, access to technology, and regional integration. Some of the proposed interventions include restructuring ESCOM, improving public expenditure management, and operationalizing the National Development Stakeholders Forum for the SDGs. We also held stakeholder engagements with different municipalities where we did the assisted with the facilitations and bringing civil society into the room to incorporate their inputs into the reports that were being developed by different cities. We had a stakeholder engagement with City of Tshwane on the 19th of March. We had a stakeholder engagement with City of Johannesburg on the 10th of April. Then Mogale City on the 11th of April. We also had a stakeholder engagement at local level where we incorporated citizen data into Kugama's report on the 10th of May. I have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. We will share the presentation and the report with you.
Thank you very much, Puseletso, for that. I also have a link to the People's Report that Puseletso was presenting on, so I will also share that in the chat. Our next speaker is Tebogo Matlo. If Tebogo can get his presentation ready in the meantime. Tebogo is a Senior Manager for International Stakeholder Relations at the South African Local Government Association, SALGA. And today he's going to be talking about something that he's really passionate about, which is the localization of the SDG. Tebogo leads initiatives that promote collaboration between municipalities and global partners in sustainable development, local governance, and climate resilience. As an SDG champion, Tebogo is deeply committed to promoting the SDGs within local government with a focus on asset management, integrating climate action, sustainability, and inclusive growth. He has supported 10 cities in developing voluntary local reviews, which we'll hear about in the next presentation. Tebogo has multiple undergraduate degrees, an MBA, and is pursuing an MCOM in program management with a focus that is very relevant to the topic today, which is the role of integrated development plans in implementing sustainable development goals. So Tebogo, welcome. It's great to have you here, and please share your presentation when you're ready. Go ahead,
yeah.
Tebogo, the floor is yours.
I have 18 minutes now, so I'm not going to touch this, but as government in South Africa, we need to work together. So I start with this slide because of the three spheres of government: local government, national government, provincial government. But within, there are people. And those people might be business, might be civic society, organization, youth, and persons with disabilities. So the SDGs, there are 17, but you see the middle one is sustainable cities and communities. It's precisely because everything happens at local government. So what are SDGs? I'm not gonna touch about this. No exams, no test, but it's all about addressing critical issues of the world today. Poverty is one of it, tackling global inequality, climate change, and urbanization, because it's very key to ensure that we are protecting our natural ecosystem. Out of the 17 SDGs, we have 169 targets, which are measured by 231 indicators. But working with stats, it does assist us to also develop our own indicators. The baseline is that we are moving from the millenniums, MDGs to SDGs, the 2000s and the 2015s. Now we're in the middle, 2030. By the time we do 2045, some of us maybe will have been retired and will be indigenous knowledge. We need to come back and share the information with the youth. We are doing it for the youth. Dignity, planet, partnership, justice, and prosperity. And partnership is very key for the SDGs. However, you have to use what we call voluntary local review. It's a tool for localizing the SDGs, allowing cities and local governments to track progress at the subnational level, aligning local development strategies with the 2030 agenda, foster transparency and accountability, build ownership and citizen engagement. It's the same as our alignment with public participation model. But we have experienced some growing of VLR reporting for 2023-2024 cycle with another step. But data was one of the issues, and institutional coordination. COCTA started with this work. Along the way, before COVID, they decided otherwise, but SALGA took it beyond this work while we started to work together by then. And we are now bringing even human settlement because of the new, because it's very key, the National Urban Agenda. But there are 3 reports that are required to do the SDGs. The voluntary national reviews, we sit with civil society in the bigger cluster organized by, working group organized by NPC. Its purpose is to assess national progress towards the SDGs, but also require them to go and present in the high-level political forum. I just received the list of the countries to go and present in 2026. I'm not sure whether this country is going to go in 2026, Chair. For the last 2 years, we have been even reporting there, but we understand the first year, last year, was that we didn't have a government. By that time, we're establishing the government of national unity. But also in the 2025, the country didn't provide the voluntary national review. And it had a negative impact in the country because everybody now shifts to support countries that are willing to report. South Africa is not one of those now. It's just because of the relationship that we had with civil society organization, with NPC, is giving even UN Habitat a hope to support this organization. Cities Network also part of us, but there's a VSR which also requires association like SALGA to provide a report, and this can't be SALGA's report. Cooperative governance, human settlement must also support the middle one because we need to do it collectively. The last one is where everything happens. It provides a detailed review of the SDG progress at the local level. Then the urban centers and smaller municipalities are integrating SDGs. I'll show you the smaller one, which was Kukama, and nobody believes that they can provide a report. That was the movement last year, Chair. The baseline is that only cities of Cape Town reported in 2019. Then you wonder why they want to have a country there. But it's because they are reporting. And I'll show you all the municipalities in Western Cape in the first 2. It shows that they are considering and seeing that they want to participate in the local space. Here is our local VLR movement. Pusele to touch a lot about the work that they've done. We had 13 cities indirectly supporting City of Cape Town, and out of the 13, 10 provided the report. The one that I highlighted in yellow, Rustenburg, Northwest, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, Mogale City, eThekwini, Umhlatuse, Buffalo City, Kukama is a small municipality, City of Cape Town, as I said, they have the second report, and Mossel Bay. So all these cities, Chair, you can link at the local review there at the bottom, but I'm going to share. Their reports are there. And as I speak, 2 cities are now in the World Cities Report about the accelerating of the SDGs. So it can show that there was a recognition for the work that municipalities provided. SALGA was coordinating and providing a technical assistance with Stats SA, with civic society organization, Puseleto and the team played a key role, and also bringing Kaizo Trust also on board. So you can see that if you do it collectively, you'll produce within a short period of time. All of us, we had our mandate to do, including also bringing Dr. Xavier on the DDM in the program. So the drivers of local government, I thought, let me put the slide. It was not there in most of my slide. It's political and economic drivers, infrastructure drivers, biophysical environmental drivers, innovation technology drivers, and demographic drivers. I can unpack all this because it's very key to drive the economy, but the drivers of local government for SDGs are these ones. This is my thinking, but also after we have engaged government programs, the rights financing is very key. Why it matters, 65% of the SDGs are influenced directly by local government. Cities are first responders to challenges like inequality, climate change, housing, and access to basic services, not national government. They must provide and strengthen accountability and transparency, supports performance management and service delivery. National average mask local inequality. I'm saying this because national data can hide disparities between urban and rural areas, rich and poor communities, or informal and formal settlements. Example, a country might report 90% of access to clean water nationally, but local data might reveal that some municipalities have access rates below 50%. They might have a tap of water, but that tap doesn't bring anything. It's only a nice air that is coming out of the tap. So that's why local SDGs are very key. Drivers of innovation investment. This can develop partners, donors, and investors look for data-driven proposals. So that's why local data is very key. Is that you can get partners to invest. Yet data gaps, especially disaggregated one, it's still a challenge. The role of data, I'm not going to touch about this because we're talking about SDG number 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, and 16, which are very key. Partnership is partner, but we need to use the GIS tool, community mapping, to ensure that citizen-generated data to fill traditional gaps. There's UN Sustainable Development Group that came up with 6 transition. However, because we've got the Agenda 2063, we are mapping the 2. Food systems is very key, energy access and affordability, digital connectivity, education, jobs and social protection, climate change. If we can do this, then we can at least accelerate the implementation, not 100%, but at least if you are at 65 to 70%. As I speak, only 16% of the SDG are on track, on the indicators and targets are on track. 16% of the 231 and 169, it's still nothing. The SDGs, these are, here you see the NUA, a global roadmap for sustainable urbanization, emphasizing resilient cities. So there is that we need to work together, but it shows the integration with IDPs and VLR to incorporate urban planning. That must be in line with the NUA principle, while VLR ensuring progress in that matter. I'm gonna pass the video, Chair. The people can listen because we normally call it a bioscope. So I will charge for that service to everybody who opens it. But why integrate SDG into municipal planning and budget, Chair, is that SDGs are aligned with South African National Development Framework, including the NDP and the medium-term strategic framework. They improve service delivery, the long-term sustainability. These are data that we've collected in Mangaung. They have 8 buses. Then that 8 buses must be able to get data of how many people are being transported daily, so that they can report whether they need this to continue with the buses. But they are still efficiently. I was there last week, but you can see, I know how many buses they have. So I go to all the cities to check, to collect data. But I ask a simple one with traffic lights. Most of the people, they don't even know how many they have. Jeffreys Bay, they have got 1 because they were traffic circuit. So we collect data easily to be able to report. Align SDGs local development plan, mobilize resources, monitor and report progress. But this is how we do it, Chair. When we get a municipality to want to do the work, we look at integrated development plan, then we look at the SDGs. They choose SDGs, but we see you can't report on all of them. But this is how you align with the SDGs. So this was one of the examples that we did to assist the municipality when we start with the real work. And SDG number 11 is the one that it's going to be reported in 2026. So municipalities are required to start putting reports together. The SDG data availability. So this is what we have been doing as a team. Puseletso and the team and the big cities are there. Chair, we are now going to have a phase 2 of the SDG and asset management, because service delivery is all about infrastructure. So asset infrastructure management is very key. So whoever is here, these are the selected municipalities. Your letters are coming for the phase 2 for the next 2 years until 2027. Eastern Cape, there are 7. Free State is 1. Gauteng it's 4 with 3 cities. KwaZulu-Natal is 3. Limpopo it's 6 with the district, because we need to have district for the first time reporting. Mpumalanga 3, Northern Cape at 2, Northwest 2. Then you go to Western Cape, as what I said as a reference in my opening remarks, is that all the cities in Western Cape, and there were many we had to balance because we'll have around 15 of the municipalities from Western Cape. So it shows they are considering this program that can also ensure that they are reporting on SDGs. But most of the cities, because they've got what I call strategic international relations strategy, it's easy for them to align this work. But almost with bigger cities, they do have, but we can assist on that. Challenges, I'm not going to touch more, but I'm going to go to opportunities. Enhancing local capacity through training program, green infrastructure investment, collaborating with national governments, smart city strategies. I was in a smart city conference by BRICS, youth and community participation, regional collaboration. The colleagues knows we have started to work with the regions, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia. As I speak, the colleagues of mine are in Zambia doing the same work. So that's how we work. Recommendations, institutionalize VLR as part of the city planning and M&E framework, invest in open data infrastructure, use VLR to influence national SDG reporting, as per what Pusiletso has been saying, but push for regional VLR networks, which we have started with Connective Cities of Germany. We are finalizing the national evidence-based responsive value-driven empowering SDG hub. So we wanted to start with it by the 21st and 24th of October, when we are going to do the phase 2 in partnership with NPC, UNDESA, UNDP, Human Settlement. We are also adding Cities Network. We're going to send the invitation so that we work together to accelerate this. But how Salga started it, we started with through eThekwini with Nirvana to bring UN Habitat to start the National Urban Forum. That's where it started, colleagues, if you don't know. Those that were in the SDG, UN Habitat came there, but we took upon ourselves to start that. And that National Urban Forum must be the driver of the SDGs, because everything starts with planning. Chair, my last slide, call to action. Municipalities are not just implementers of the SDGs. They are enablers, innovators, and leaders. So let's discuss. I have 2 questions before I get the questions. What does SDG localization look like in your context? And how is your municipality, your department, your business, your NGO contributing to the SDG? Chairperson, this is my favorite slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tebogo, for the presentation. We can hear how passionate you are about the topic, but also you put a clear challenge out to local government to get involved, to participate in the localization of SDGs and contribute to the national picture. So thanks very much for that inspiring presentation. I'd like to now introduce our final speaker before we open to the floor. Again, she will be familiar to many people in this space, active in the local government M&E space. Nirvana Srikasun is a SDG champion for the eThekwini municipality with extensive experience in municipal operations, including finance, audit, systems development, project management, and performance monitoring and evaluation. In addition to monitoring organizational performance within eThekwini, she works on multi-sectoral projects with municipal and external stakeholders, where she aims to enhance cooperation and partnerships, promote the use of technology and data to improve service delivery, and monitor project deliverables. Nirvana currently leads several transversal projects aimed at accelerating SDG awareness and implementation and the effective use of data for decision-making and SDG reporting. And today, Nirvana is going to be talking to us about the experience of eThekwini Metro in localizing the SDGs. So Nirvana, over to you.
Good afternoon, Nick, and good afternoon, colleagues. I am sharing. If you can let me know that everything is fine and visible on your side, Nick.
Yes, we can see it. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me start by saying thank you very much to yourselves and the team at the National Strat Hub for the opportunity to present. I think Tebogo's presentation was a good lead up to the conversation we're going to have now about the eThekwini process or experience in terms of developing our first voluntary local review. Essentially, my presentation today is also going to cover a lot of the content that's actually in our VLR, particularly the findings and the recommendations from the voluntary local review process. Before I actually get into the VLR, I thought it's important to provide an indication of where eThekwini is in terms of the SDGs at the moment, and I'm not going to go through all of the detail in the slide. But suffice to say, I think one of the most important steps that we took was the establishment of an SDG institutionalization committee that was formed way back in the year 2000, actually. And that led to bringing together colleagues from different environments in the city to actually mainstream some of the SDG work and get going with the collection of data, etc., that led to the production of the VLR. We also then developed our own logo, and you'll see it on the top of my slides and in a lot of our documentation. The other important points that I want to just highlight here is that we do have an open data portal where we report on the data available for all of the SDGs. So we've taken a conscious decision to collect data for all SDG indicators and to provide those progress updates on that open data portal. It is, again, openly accessible, so you can go and have a look at it. It sits on our eThekwini strategic hub. I will say, colleagues, that the open data portal is currently being updated, so there may be a few things that are not working, etc., but it is there. And then, of course, we've had great success in our awareness-raising initiatives, which I will discuss in a little while. So SDG Institutionalization Committee started its work by aligning the SDGs to the budget and our city monitoring tools, including the IDP, etc. We then proceeded with localizing the indicators, and we streamlined those for reporting purposes. We then developed the portal, and that was included in the Strat Hub. We started our process of data collection for these indicators before we actually even thought about developing the VLR. Data collection, as you'd know, is not very easy, and I'll cover some of the challenges that we had. But eventually, when we decided to produce the VLR, a lot of the data was already accessible to us. Our success factors, I think, most prominently here is the fact that we had strong support from city leadership for this SDG-related work. In our VLR, we decided to highlight SDG 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 17. And that's predominantly because they are aligned to the mandates of municipalities. The SDGs, for those of us that work within government know it's not new, colleagues. It's something we've been doing, and it's aligned to government mandates, but we just need to ramp up our efforts. In the VLR, we reported on 37 indicators within those prioritized SDGs, and they were a mix of the UN indicators that were domesticated by Statistics South Africa, and then the indicators that we chose as a city, or the localized indicators. And the data is actually from Statistics South Africa and our own city-based statistics. As I said, we chose to report on all of the indicators where we are able to access data. However, we are only using audited results for the indicators. So wherever data was available, but they're not audited or not from verifiable sources, we're actually not reporting on those indicators. As part of the VLR process, we obviously learned a lot of lessons, and I thought it would be handy to share this with colleagues. As I said, the work we're doing is not new. We just need to accelerate our efforts. Consultation and engagement is critical, and that can be with officials within your municipalities, partner organizations, community-based organizations, businesses, etc. In this VLR process, one of the things we realized is that it is important to have a budget for the actual VLR, and that is for engagement sessions, for editing of your documentation, and for publishing. Some of these can be minimal, depending on how you want to edit and publish, for example, but there needs to be some minimal budget available. You require dedicated resources and the time to be set aside by those resources. The previous speaker, Tebogo, alluded to how the process was how the process unfolded to develop these VLRs. And it was quite intensive. We found ourselves sitting for days at a time, often up to 7, 8 o'clock in the afternoon or evening, just concentrating on writing for the VLRs. So no other work can really get done in that time. Another issue that I think is quite important to highlight, and it might be simplistic, but there are global guiding elements that are provided for the development of the voluntary local reviews. If those are followed, it actually provides quite a nice guideline for the actual VLR. The layout, formatting, and presentation of the data in the report is quite important. Finer details about localizing the indicators is actually quite critical. We, as eThekwini, localize some of our indicators, and then, of course, you run into issues when it comes to uniformity in the numbering of those localized indicators, etc. That requires working with organizations like StatsSA. And then, of course, finally, it's important to also use qualitative data and case studies. Very often where data itself is not available, the case studies and examples of best practices, etc., provide a nice idea of what the city is doing. Our challenges, of course, funding, and our solutions for that is to apply for grants and work within the existing budgets. Very often projects that are already on the go can be crafted such that they talk to the objectives and the goals of the SDGs as well. There is a reporting burden. So what we did is we tried to align the existing reporting to the SDG indicators so that we streamline and prevent duplication. For example, the SDBIP indicators, Circular 88, etc. The new initiatives will involve looking at the new urban agenda indicators and trying to align that as well. Of course, there's lack of data for reporting. I won't go into any more detail there. I think we all know this. And then the data not being relevant to the local context. Very often where data is available, it is not disaggregated to municipal context. There was initially poor alignment amongst the 3 levels of government, colleagues. I must say that as part of the SDG program phase 1, a lot of those issues are being dealt with where the reporting and the data from the local level is now feeding into provincial and national level. So there's been progress there. Lack of data on SDG expenditure. So as municipalities right now, although we're putting budgets and money into actually undertaking the SDG related work, it's not always easy to track that. So we are looking at exploring the use of MSCOA, the Municipal Standard Chart of Accounts, to actually track that spending. And then our second last challenge that I wanted to highlight was ensuring inclusion. So there we tried to use existing fora and civil society organizations as an example, where they already work within communities, particularly those that are vulnerable, to try and assist us to ensure that every member of society is included in the work that we do and in the comments that came through for the VLR. And then, of course, there's still limited awareness of the SDGs. Our data-related challenges, no data for some indicators, and then the localized indicators needing metadata. We developed the indicators and realized along the way that if somebody else reads the indicators and it isn't an official from eThekwini, they may not necessarily know what the indicator is measuring. So of course, the metadata becomes important. There's little to no disaggregated data. There's no response to some requests for data. And again, some of those challenges are being dealt with as part of the SALGA SDG program. We don't always have access to comparable data, and Yasmin spoke about this earlier on. Part of the reason for monitoring of indicators is to track the trend in performance. And if we don't have comparable data, that becomes very, very difficult. The numbering of localized indicators is quite important to concentrate on. And then, of course, data quality. Is it accurate? Is it comparable? Is the data coming from a reliable source? And then, of course, is it complete? Are we measuring everything that we're supposed to be measuring? And then the hesitancy to share data. This often comes with power struggles, etc. So we do end up with challenges. Something else that I thought I'd highlight, colleagues, is some of the gaps we identified in the process. And I don't necessarily mean this is applicable to every municipality or government organization. But the SDGs are also looking at us getting involved in things like food security, dealing with organic waste, circular economy initiatives, and reusing waste. Of course, the infrastructure, which Tebogo again alluded to, and innovation. And I don't think as local government, we are concentrating enough in most of our municipalities on these particular items. Infrastructure, we know if the infrastructure is not of good quality and it's crumbling and aging, we really can't provide the correct level of services to our residents and to communities. And then, of course, with innovation, this is critical, colleagues, because as much as our intentions for projects may be good, if the municipality is not enabled to allow innovation to continue, these projects fail. That's the crux of my presentation as far as the VLR itself is concerned. But I also thought this might be a bit handy to colleagues that may still be battling with issues around raising awareness of the SDGs, etc. So I wanted to highlight some of the initiatives we've undertaken as eThekwini. So we participated in the science fairs, science clubs, etc. with ESCOM, where we share details about the SDGs with scholars. We've got our public art and murals project, and I'll show you some of the pictures of those murals just now. We developed an SDG comic book, which is freely available for anybody to use. It's targeted at the youth, but a lot of the adults have also found the comic book quite interesting. And of course, it is concentrating on the SDGs. We've undertaken storytelling in isiZulu and English at some of our local schools. There's various videos that we've published on SDG projects in the city. And then there's several official publications, media articles, journals, etc. And we're now exploring SDG awareness through gaming. So this is the QR code for the comic book, and I've put in a link to the eThekwini website where all of this material can be found. These are just some of the pictures of an SDG survey that we undertook, and then engagements with scholars. These are pictures of some of the murals we've developed in the city in conjunction with the graphic artist Ewok. And the video that I'm going to play now actually just quickly explains or takes you through the process of how these murals are developed. And the reason I included it is to just show that it is not done solely by ourselves. We get communities involved as well. So I'm just going to play this now.
Nirvana, we're not hearing any sound. I wonder if you could just check the sound settings.
Is it okay? 1 second. Let me go back. Okay, and then my last few slides, colleagues, again, are just looking at some of the partnerships that we have in place that have helped us to achieve what we have on the SDGs. I won't go through the detail of all of them, but there's interesting projects on the go with partners like Southern Sun, the UN Habitat colleagues where it comes to human security assessments. There's the Buffels Dry Landfill Reforestation Project where the community is involved, the Transformative Riverine Management Project where we're removing alien invasive plants from our riverine, from our rivers, and that's then used in the production production of concrete slabs, which are used to pave schools, etc. There's a lot of work that's being funded by the British High Commission on our informal settlements, transit-orientated development, and then our data strategy. Quite a bit of work with the team in Bremen. And then, of course, we now have a trilateral sister city agreement with Windhoek as well. That's led to the production of this report that's showing on the right-hand side, which is looking at a common set of SDG indicators that the 3 cities can actually report on. So that's the baseline report, and there'll be progress updates on that. We then have some work with the University College London, where we developed a budget prioritization model for SDG 6. This is the project I spoke about where the concrete pavers are developed, and that's all using waste that's collected from in and around the KwaMashu area. And companies can buy off these concrete pavers to then pave the schools. On zero waste, colleagues, and the organic waste composting, in conjunction with the Durban University of Technology, there is a project on the go where waste is being diverted from our bulk market in the city to the Botanic Gardens, and they are then making compost with that waste. And I thought this was quite interesting to include because I liked the statistics that have been recorded. So there's over 200 tons of organic waste that's been diverted and over 80 tons of compost that's been produced. And this is since 2024 only. This project is currently being scaled up to 2 additional markets in the city. So that's interesting work. And then, of course, on the food gardens, there's work around trying to get community members involved in growing their own food in their own gardens. So that's the One Home, One Garden program through our agroecology unit, and the Sisonke Food Garden, which is behind the Elangeni Hotel. That was started during COVID, and it grew to such an extent that the community members and, in fact, previously homeless population were growing that food, and they grew so much that they started selling. It was more than enough for their needs. So the hotel started buying it, and they now sending their waste to that site so that they can make compost on site as well. We've also got, related to infrastructure, our water reuse project, where some of the grey water in the city is being cleaned out. I won't say recycled, but it's being cleaned out, and it's used by the paper mills in the city instead of using potable water for paper production. And then, of course, the forecast early warning system that actually prevented deaths in the community that it was tried out in during the 2022 flooding. So this is a system using weather warnings from South African Weather Services, and it alerts communities via WhatsApp of inclement weather so that they can move to higher ground, etc. I'll stop there, colleagues. I'm aware I think I'm just on my time, if not slightly over, but I'm happy to discuss and provide any information on any of the projects if need be. Thank you.
I just want to sort of wrap up by saying, firstly, thank you to all the presenters. I think there's some very strong themes that have been coming out. Firstly, around data sharing and data availability, issues around accuracy of metadata, describing exactly what you're collecting and how really important. But what's interesting to me coming up through all of the presentations actually was different kinds of data. We've been speaking about citizen-centric data, citizen-collected data. We've been talking about case studies, contributions from the private sector that's just been spoken about. So and that's a really interesting insight for me, is that all of these things contribute in different ways to reporting on the SDGs, and I think we've got some very good concrete benefits from the examples in eThekwini around how that SDGs and from Buffalo City, the SDGs can actually assist municipalities in a number of different ways, and the reporting is just kind of a means to achieve all sorts of other benefits. So thanks very much for the very rich discussion. I'm going to close the session on the floor now and ask Rebecca to come in and wrap it up for us. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I think just reiterated, and big thank you to our presenters, Yasmin, Puseletso, Tebogo, and Nirvana, for providing such a complementary set of perspectives on how to use data to advance both the new urban agenda and localize the SDGs, and a kind of broader conversation around alignment and integration of different levels of priority and strategy. A big thank you to our audience. Your attendance and engagement and contribution to this growing community of practice is much appreciated. And I think this is one of our most robust audience discussions yet. So thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot for your questions and provocations. And yeah, I think Nick's covered well in terms of just bringing through some of the insights that emerged in the themes. Yeah, a big thank you to Nick, who leads the work of the Insight Exchange and the NSH team for the behind the scenes work. And before we close off, I just want to share the theme of our next. So as per usual, the first Tuesday of next month, which is the 4th of November, I believe, we're going to be looking at water and sanitation data. And again, as always, it's increasing awareness around the available water, well, the data, but in this case, the water and sanitation data products available for better municipal planning. We'll have a great mix of speakers bringing in their expertise and different perspectives, different positionalities, and the Strat Hub. This Insight Exchange, we didn't speak to any of our products specifically, but we'll be presenting the revised version of our State of Water and Sanitation dashboard. And I know there was a request to just speak to staying in touch. I see the slide decks down, but yeah, we invite you to go to our portal, the Strat Hub portal, where there is a dedicated Insight Exchange. There it is, a dedicated Insight Exchange page, in addition to all our products and dashboards. And then you'll see there on the slide that if you are not part of and would like to join our mailing list, you can do so via that email address. But all of you on this call should have indicated that, yeah, you'll be registered through your participation. Great. So yeah, I think we can close, and thanks again to everyone for their engagement.